Mr. President, thank you so much for taking the time to join us at Stanford. It's definitely an honor and a privilege for us to host you here. This is a very important time for Rwanda, celebrating 20 years after the genocide conflict. And for yourself, it's a very important time too. You could consider that your terms in office have been incredibly successful, and you continue to be successful in transforming the Rwandan economy. In fact, I have a quote from a recent IMF report that states, prudent fiscal and monetary policies geared towards maintaining macroeconomic stability, coupled with a strong emphasis on building institutional quality, promoting good governance, and creating a business-friendly environment, contributed to low inflation and average annual economic growth in excess of 8% over the last decade. From a regional perspective, Rwanda's macroeconomic performance has generally outperformed its peers. Now, this is a decade over which you have been in the leadership, and I'd love for you to tell our students in your own words about this economic transformation, and what was your vision and how did you see it implemented?
Well, it has been, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here, but this has been a very long and challenging journey, and that involves Rwandans. That's the most important thing. It involves Rwandans in the sense that what we have tried to do when we took office is to make sure that we mobilize Rwandans so that together we do whatever it takes for us to fulfill our potential, our aspirations, and put in place the kind of environment that would facilitate that. Whether it was in terms of creating political stability, security for the people, and putting in place institutional government that would provide accountability and so on and so forth. This is what we've been trying to do, and fortunately, and we built from that firm foundation. Fortunately, as we move forward, we realize the good progress is being made.
So, in addition to the dramatic growth you've experienced, you've also managed to improve inequality. We've seen reductions in inequality in Rwanda and reductions in poverty levels in Rwanda. Can you tell us a bit how you've managed that balance between growth and also reducing inequality? And were there specific policies that led to that?
Yes, as I mentioned, everything we have been doing has been focused on how do Rwandans participate, how do Rwandans benefit. Necessarily, to be able to achieve that, you have to put in place structures and framework of good governance that allows this participation to happen. So that's how inequality has been reduced by and through this participation, and we have targeted the ordinary people as the primary beneficiary of whatever else is being done in the country. In fact, to give it numbers, just between 2006 and 2011, we saw 1 million people get out of poverty through the kinds of investments and these governance institutions we have created and allowing them to participate. So reducing inequality was the main aim. And you can only achieve it by allowing people to participate so that they benefit from whatever else that is being done for their own interests.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk a bit about the role of foreign aid in Rwanda's development. You've been the beneficiary of quite a bit of aid, and you've had quite a bit of support from donors. And Can you say what has been sort of the highlights of receiving aid? You've said in the past that the primary purpose of aid should be to ultimately work itself out. So tell us a bit how you see that, and what have been some pitfalls in the use of aid in potentially other countries?
Let me try to clear the confusion in the understanding or with what some people have said when we have tried to explain issues around aid. There is nothing wrong with aid for as long as it serves the purpose of getting people out of the cycle of poverty and dependency. This is very important. Therefore, when we have made criticisms about aid and how it is used, we are really referring to the fact that, and the problem is on both ends. One is on the side of the donors, maybe who give aid without really respecting the other side to say they know what they want, or let's work together with them, let's listen to them and identify what really needs to be done for people to get out of poverty and out of this need, perpetual need for aid, and move forward. This is very important. They have been good at availing aid, which is fair enough, but they haven't been good at identifying with the beneficiaries, the recipient people, to say this is the best way to target poverty and to get people out of dependency. That's on the one side. The other side also is on the recipient part, on countries in Africa, mainly, maybe elsewhere. There is also focusing too much on getting aid and just getting aid and getting more aid without saying, when we get aid, this is what we need to be doing so that we stop needing aid and be able to stand on our own. That's a big problem on our side. So what we have done in our own case, and together with the people who provide aid, is to say, look, we need to do things differently. We can't continue to be in the state that has been there for the last over 50 years. Let's identify together. Let's hold each other accountable on how aid flows to us and how it is used, and be able to measure the outcome and focus on the results. Is what we are doing together really giving us the kind of benefits we want? So we have insisted on this, and where there has been good cooperation with the donors, and we have seen also this behavior change on their part for some time now, and where we have worked with them on this basis, we have found good results. And that's what has really been happening in Rwanda.
So let me push you a little bit more on that. Can you say, specifically international aid agencies such as the World Bank or the IMF, are there particular ideas that you have or thoughts that you have on their participation in development in countries?
It is simple and it has worked. We have told them, be it the institutions or countries that are involved with aid, we have said, respect the recipients of aid, and also understand that they can identify with you, and they really know what they need to do with the money you give them. As long as you do that, then there is likely to be good progress. That's all we have insisted on. And we have seen more acceptance of that, and we have seen it work. In our case, it has worked. We have seen change in approach with the World Bank, even with the IMF or other institutions, international institutions. We have seen change with the countries. In my own country, we have benefited from largely aid from United Kingdom, from European Union, and the Dutch, the Belgians, and so on. And we have insisted that, and they have been accepting that we need to work like that. And we have seen very good results, which maybe have been working in other places as well, or are beginning to work in other places as well.
So as you're talking about other places, in recent years, a number of other African countries have experienced quite exceptional growth. Mozambique, Uganda, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso. Can you tell us a bit about how you see the region going forward and what role you see for Rwanda in sort of helping to integrate the region?
Yeah, Africa generally, if you look at other than few trouble spots in different parts, otherwise there is good progress. If you take the region of East Africa, that involves Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, and Rwanda, and through integration, through creating a common market, through allowing intra-African trade to take place within these regional blocks. You may talk about other regional blocks like the West Africa and the ECOWAS. You have others in the south, and so on and so forth. Good progress is being made. And in the East African community where Rwanda is located, we have seen tremendous progress. And Rwanda is playing, we are playing our own part as part of this regional bloc. And we share best practices across the region. We learn from what is happening in other countries. They learn from what is happening in our own country. And we are able to move forward like that. That's how Rwanda plays its own part. Not only do we make sure that we carry out the reforms necessary within our own borders and do the best we can, but we also benefit from the others and also share with the others what we are doing. So Rwanda continues to play a part in that way.
So let's take this back to Rwanda for a second. Can you tell us a bit about your vision for the future of growth in Rwanda? 8% growth is a very high growth rate to sustain, and a lot of that has been just rebuilding after the conflict. So what do you see as the future for growth, for entrepreneurship in Rwanda, for cultivating that business class that you mentioned?
Let me start by giving you a picture of the demographics in Rwanda. We have under 20 years forming 50% of our population. We have 71% under 30. Now, this is a huge opportunity, much as it constitutes a challenge. This youthful population is very important. And if we put it in the general context of, say, the whole region of East Africa or even across the continent, with the growing middle class, that comes with opportunities again. But there is still a huge potential in investments, say, in agriculture, the whole continent, the region, my own country, a huge opportunity and potential in infrastructure. Then growing businesses that will require developing a vibrant private sector. all these have limitless opportunities that will go on for quite a long time. Invest in railroads, in roads, in energy infrastructure, and it's huge. That allows this young population, if invested in properly, through education, skills, and entrepreneurship, armed with entrepreneurial skills, I think it's going to be huge for a long time.
So you've also mentioned, or there's been talk of developing a knowledge economy in Rwanda. Can you tell us a bit more about that and the progress on that, and in particular, the progress on cultivating the talent for contributing to that knowledge economy?
Investing in people is the right thing in itself. For Rwanda, it's even another thing, because largely we have people and are not endowed with so much in terms of the non-natural resources people talk about everywhere. So for us, really, it's the main thing. First of all, even if for those who have natural resources, they still need to invest in the people. And probably that's the big mistake done in some places. They may be happy with having oil and minerals and all kinds of things and forget about investing in people. For us, we don't have those. So we cannot even afford to forget to invest in people. So our people are the most important. And that's how the whole idea of saying we need to invest in people, we need to base our economy on knowledge and skills and the use of technologies and so on and so forth. For us, that's the way to go.
So I'm going to change gear a little bit and bring this back to the significance of this time. 20 years after the genocide, there's been incredible transformation and growth and reconciliation. What would you say are some things left to still be done with regards to reconciliation after the conflict?
I think the need for reconciliation will take a long time. Will go on for probably generations. We cannot underestimate in any way the damage caused to our society, whose social fabric has been completely, more or less, destroyed by the genocide we had in 1994 and the politics before that. So what we are trying to do today is make sure that Rwandans understand what went wrong in our history and be able to correct that. But to do that, so many things have to happen. We have indeed to allow reconciliation to take place. At the same time, this is dragged back by also that there is a need for justice and accountability. So the mix of two, of course, delays what we can achieve over time. But in any case, we have structured the need for justice in such a way that it does not become an impediment to reconciliation, but rather allows reconciliation to take place. So it will take time, it takes time. But allowing reconciliation, talking about our past, talking about our problems and accepting our problems, that we are the ones, anyway, primarily behind all this that happened, even if there are external factors. I don't think we need to dwell so much on them because that would do no good to anyone, and we need to concentrate on accepting our responsibility, taking responsibility for our future, and agreeing to work together and really harness the diversity in our society and just say we are different, but for being different, we can also work together for the good of everyone. That's how we have approached it, and as long as we also continue with good growth that feeds into the general development of our people, and good governance that allows all Rwandans to participate, I think we stand much chance in being where we want to be in the near future.
And speaking of where you want to be in the near future, what is sort of your hope for a successor, and what do you hope to complete in your term in office before you leave?
Well, I look back and see the challenges we have had in the past and how far we have come in stabilizing the country, and creating institutions has been our aim, to make sure that these institutions outlive any individual. You see, people get obsessed with putting dates, when do you go, why don't you go, why don't you spend so much time on this? But anyway, let me tell you, I'm one of those who realize that even if I didn't want to go, I would go anyway sometime. So it's just natural that one would have to be having a problem not to imagine that there will be a time. So that's what makes us feel there is a need for institutions to be built that will outlive all of us. So, but back to the specific question. What I would want to see, or what we have, is continuation of what we've already seen that we have done together with Rwandans, continue and get better, and so that Rwandans' dignity is really, fulfilled and achieved. And that's what is happening, by the way, across Africa, I think. A dignified life that people must live has been lacking and has been underlying most of these problems you see. So as long as we can do that, and we can achieve that, or continue to work towards achieving it, I think I will be happy that Rwanda, dignified people, a stable country, prosperous, and continuing to be part of the African continent, and Rwanda and Africa really finding their own voice and place in the global affairs, which it doesn't have for a long time.
And can you talk about the role of women in Rwanda, and sort of your push towards encouraging women, and how do you see progress on that going forward?
Let me say that we look at the role of women in the wider context and of our country's, our nation's development. Women are part and parcel of our nation and society, so they've got rights to, to aspire to as well. But if you look at 52% of our population being women, one would not need to be so intelligent to understand that this is a part of a population you cannot ignore, other than even on top of that being their right to be there and do what any human being is doing. So that's where our understanding and our actions stem from. And we've seen women in education, in governance institutions, in decision making. Their numbers increase year in, year out. They dominate the parliament, in the judiciary, have in the leadership about 45%. We have in the general administration significant number. In business, they are beginning to pick up and the numbers are increasing. And it's healthy for our country, for our politics, and for our development.
So let me ask you a bit about your leadership of Rwanda and your leadership style. And especially for business school students here, they're all interested in being leaders in the future, at least so we hope. Tell us a bit about what you think most prepared you for leadership in Rwanda, and if you have any advice for the MBA students here, and I should say all students here, because we've got more than MBA students here.
I think many problems I've grown through prepared me maybe 50% of what I tried to do. I've gone through many of them. But the other part, maybe I don't know. It's a nature which no one is responsible for. So maybe it is split 50-50. One is the environment, the other is nature, and combined we make person what. So in my environment, I've had decades of hardships to manage and live in and so on and so forth. I think they were not wasted. They must have formed something in me. And and in some cases, I have found myself in positions of leadership, even when I have not made the choice to be there. Just happens I find myself in a place and being told I'm the one to deal with the problems that are there. And when it has come, my feeling and my reaction has always been to take on the challenge and do the best one humanly can, and make sure you don't do it alone, or you want to do it alone. You don't want to do it alone, because it will break your back if you really do that. So you try to make sure you share the burden with others and get to understand each other and where you are coming from and what you have to deal with, and then agree what you want the outcome to be. So it's something that works in, day out, and for as long as you want to participate in what you are doing, and then you also realize you are in a leadership position, you've got to be ready to carry the challenges and the burdens that come with it.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts so far. We're now going to open it up for a few questions. We're going to start with taking 2 questions, one from my left and then one from my right. Mr. President will answer the first 2 questions. And then we can, if we have time for more, we'll take some more. So may I have the first question from the left, my left, please. And please remember to state your name and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, President Kagame. My name is Kara Reichard. I am an undergraduate political science major here at Stanford. My question is, can you tell us a little bit about what Rwanda is doing and perhaps what it can do better in terms of regional cooperation and specifically human rights promotion, and particularly in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where millions of people have been killed in the past 20 years, at least in part due to Rwandan involvement? Thank you.
Well, if we really want to understand the region or issues between Rwanda and the DRC, and their history and the roots, I think I would encourage you as a political science student to visit Belgium and ask the Belgians they probably, because the problems in the Congo started before I was born. The first Secretary General of the UN died in the Congo. That is probably when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. So if you really want to make a good study of political science and the history that give rise to many things that happen, you need to start from there. And to fulfill the human rights obligations, I want to take you again through what we do in our own country, all these things we are talking about. When we are empowering women, when we are investing in education of our people and covering every person and making sure they have access and can go to school. If we give them health care, universal health care that covers close to 90% of our population. If we are investing in broadband and other communications infrastructure that we avail to our people so that they can access information and can communicate. If we have decentralized our politics to the point that the sectors, the districts, and everybody can access information, can give their views, that does not add up. So I encourage you to do your maths, as you say here, and make sure that you will see that these things we are talking about add up to actually making sure that we encourage and realize respect for people's human rights. And we can't be doing it at home and then not want to do it elsewhere unless something is missing. So as we do what we do at home, we share it with the rest of the region, and that's how it happens in the East African community, if you ask across the board. So, but the history of Congo and all the other issues, they have a long history. We can go the whole day talking about that, but I don't think we have the time.
Thank you. We'll take a question from this side.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Ken Opalo. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Political Science. My question is on the issue of term limits in Rwanda. Term limits.
Okay.
Presidential term limits. You said that you're not obsessed with specific dates, but institutional development is also predicated on having specific and very obvious term limits so that everyone knows those specific dates. So what is your take on term limits in Rwanda, and do you like the idea of having your retirement date set clearly? Thank you.
Yeah, but see, what I was referring to, and I have been asked this question since I came to office in 2003. And I've always tried to figure out what is in it that people keep talking about. And yet, at the same time, everyone who stands up to ask me this question refers to the term limits that exist in the Constitution. So what really are they asking?
So shall I rephrase?
So, maybe I rephrase the answer for you. So what I'm talking about, I think what we are talking about here is something that primarily concerns Rwandans. Can you please respect Rwandans and allow them a chance to do what they feel is good for them? If they put a constitution in place, it is their constitution. If they are talking about President Kagame, he is their president. They are the ones who elected him. I did not write the Constitution. I don't write constitutions. So there shouldn't be, we can't take all the time talking about, are you going, when are you going, which date, do you go, do you want to go? And yet they say, so now, I think it has come to a point to say, why don't you wait? And come 2017, we see what will happen. That's the best thing we can do. Otherwise, I'm even being distracted from, I still have some close to 3 years to serve. I want to deliver to my people and not keep answering whether I'm not there to live or to stay no, I'm there to deliver to my people, period. All of these other things are just a sideshow, really. You shouldn't waste anybody's time. Because in any case, everyone knows whoever is asking this question, they may not finally decide what happens. It is Rwandans that will decide. To force Kagame to respect the constitution they put in place in case he misbehaves and is thinking about something else, and so on and so forth. So let's respect what is there. Let's respect Rwandans. Let's talk about other very important issues.
With that, let's take one more question. I'll take one from the middle, if there's a microphone.
Thank you. My name is Kennedy Jawoko. I'm a Ugandan journalist. Well, we know that South Sudan has fallen kind of apart after a very, very fast kind of a period where, leaders tried to put it together and build this state to make sense in that very troubled region. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are for a robust African Union kind of team, army, in a way, going to South Sudan and trying to keep the peace there, because I think it's one of the countries that if African leaders allow it to fall as it is right now, might cause a lot of trouble in the region. So I wonder if you have any thoughts on that and if you would like to share that.
And say your name again, please.
My name is Kennedy Jawoko.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Thank you very much for your question. Why don't we take one more question so that you can answer both at the same time, in the interest of time, just to make sure we do get to at least one more question. Yes.
My name's Projal. I'm a second-year MBA student at the GSB. It's hard not to compare Rwanda's transformation to that of Singapore. And the two things that strike me are a small population size, as well as the fact that there had to be time given to a president for several decades to sort of execute on the vision that they had. So my question is, A, how scalable do you think what you've done with Rwanda is to countries with larger populations? And B, in a place like Southeast Asia, there's room for only one Singapore. So when you think about East Africa and Africa in general, can Rwanda end up being a Singapore of Africa and be a hub for innovation and entrepreneurship in the region, while the rest of the region delivers around it?
The first question, what was the first question?
Thank you very much.
The first part of your question.
Repeat the first part of your
The
question.
first question is, how scalable do you think is the transformation that you've undertaken in Rwanda in countries with larger populations? And is the transformation constrained by how big a country is?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Let me start with this one. First of all, the African Union, the aim is actually to create, on the part of the force, for example, there has been an aim of creating what we call a standby force for Africa, but this was to be divided across regions, southern, eastern, central, western. So at each region, countries there bring together their capacities in order for them to be able to intervene when that is necessary, say, in any part of their region. Or the regions to come together irrespective of where the trouble is, meaning southern, eastern, central can work together to deal with the problem in eastern or southern Africa. That's what has been agreed and put on paper. In fact, to a great extent, some countries have already advanced on that. Like in the East African community, there has been progress, but not enough to carry out the intervention like that required in Southern Sudan. The problem is much bigger probably than what has been put together through this organization. But the aim is there, the principle is there, the understanding is there along the lines you are talking about. But the problem of South Sudan is also there now. It can't wait until Africa gets better and improves in another 10 years or whichever. It needs intervention now. And that's how it has now reverted to the UN. The UN is thinking about what to do and has already put forces on the ground, small size, not able to deal with the challenge that is on the ground. In fact, Rwanda is already, it has a battalion in South Sudan trying to help under the UN, but at the same time, we also have a force in the Central African Republic. So it is still countries on individual basis that are being called upon either under the AU, because in the Central African Republic, the force started as that under the African Union. But now the UN has taken over responsibility and they are mobilizing more forces, not only from Africa, but beyond. So that's how things are. The thinking is there, the need is there, the principle is the correct one, but the implementation still is dependent on the capacities of different countries to be able to do what they are required to do. That capacity is lacking. So it will take a bit of time. That's why every time we wait for the UN, because the UN can pull resources from across the world rather than just from one part of, or from the continent. That's why the problem is. On the second question, the first one, it depends on how you want to look at it. Countries with bigger populations, one can also look at it as that being more resources to put to problems. So it depends really on a number of things. I think the most important thing is how have you invested in people? How are you ready to mobilize the people around this problem to find a solution? What are the kinds of resources you need and where are they going to be drawn from? So for a country like Rwanda, where maybe in comparison with Singapore and so on and so forth, what you can do in Rwanda, a small country with big problems, that's another thing. Being small does not mean you can't have big problems. So Rwanda is small, but it has had huge problems, which may be big countries don't even have. So, but that, I think the approach of investing in people in the right, sectors of business, the private sector, the infrastructure, skills, and so on and so forth. And then the actual management of that, the governance of that is very critical. But this can be scaled up for, bigger countries. I think bigger populations, in my view, you have more resources. For example, when we are trying to make sure that our country can generate and increasingly so the internal revenues from activities of the people. We have 12 million, but I think places with 100 million have 1 million people. They have maybe 10 times more opportunities as where to draw from, given what these human beings can contribute. So I think it is scalable. What has been used in Rwanda or in Singapore, in other places, I think can be done elsewhere.
And you've also talked about freedom of labor mobility, so people
Yes.
can come in,
Yes.
immigrants can come in, so that contributes to
Yes.
having a greater workforce.
Yes.
You've also talked about increased trade integration. So all those certainly contribute to the scalability
Absolutely.
of the Rwandan model.
Absolutely. It depends on what environment you create.
Right.
Yes, for us, we have realistically, understood and accepted our problems, unique as a country, the way we are, landlocked and small population and so on and so forth. And we found solutions around that. And one way, with the shortage of skills because of many things in history, including this genocide we are talking about and so on and so forth, we couldn't, and of course, even initially, even before the tragic situation, we had a small skilled workforce. But we had ambitions and more opportunities to build fast and move on. And we couldn't wait until we have developed or invested in our own people, because investing in some of the skills required in people takes many years. So we had to accept that we can allow people from outside to come and work in Rwanda, and it's a win-win kind of situation. But around that, again, we had to make sure there is something unique we create about Rwanda to make it attractive. That's security, that's transparency, that's about the accountability issues in Rwanda, and fighting corruption and so on and so forth. So that even in doing business, when we say, well, when you come to Rwanda and you want to invest and you want to start a company, it will take you 6 hours to open a company. Initially, it was taking us 90 days. In some places, it is still like that. So if somebody is to wait for 90 days to open a company in one country, and I am there saying, no, if you come, I'll be done with everything in 6 hours, I think they'll prefer to come for 6 hours instead of the cost of 90 days. So things like that.
Very good. So we have time for one more quick question. And let's see where the mic is. And we'll take one from the middle.
Hi, Mr. President. My name is Bowen, and I'm a second-year MBA student. My question is around your views on the increasing aid and money from China, especially in the context of China's growing prominence around the world, in the context of U.S.'s international policies in Africa. Thank you.
Well, that's not a quick question, but I will allow the president to say what he can in 2 minutes.
Well, for China, yes, big size, wealth, and so on, and wanting a bigger stake in global affairs comes with some responsibility. So, but China has been maybe meeting its responsibility through private investments across Africa, and because of their role in the international financial institutions, other countries that have a bigger stake there are telling them to step up and increase their participation in terms of how much money they put there, that will later on work across different parts of the world. I think this is fine. This should be the case. But anyway, wherever the money comes from or whatever participation, we just need to think about what is this participation, how healthy is it to the recipients, and also to the needs, their needs, as well as those who are giving money. Those who give money are not giving it for free. I know they expect a certain either profits or feedback or benefits of some kind. So we have to look at a formula that satisfies all sides.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.